Hello, everybody, and welcome to Open EXO Live. Really great to be with you this week. And this week we have John Stroud with us in Ottawa in Canada. And you can see the folks who are coming up in the next couple of weeks. We will be taking the month of August off for a summer holiday for those in the Northern Hemisphere, winter for those of you here in the Southern Hemisphere. But we will be taking a short break, and then we'll be back again. So if you're interested in joining us on Open EXO Live, you can apply in the marketplace so you can share your story about how you are leveraging EXO out in the world. And before we get John up on screen, I do just have a few words that came from some community members. And the first one comes from Danny. And he just said, in February 2020, I entered the EXO community. In almost a year, I have learned all about exponential technologies and how to leverage them in a transformation. A great journey. What stood out in this journey is the people I have met and the start of new friendships. Some of those people are a little extra special. People like John Stroud. We met in the sprint certification course and to this day have kept in contact. In the days leading up to the pitch, I was anxious and struggling to make my ideas clear. John helped me clarify my thoughts, and the pitch turned out great. John is intelligent, helpful, and well-structured colleague, teacher, and coach. Do you need someone to help you with your pitch and narrative? Work with John Stroud. Next, we have from Angela. I highly recommend John as a pitch coach. John was our team's pitch coach during our 10-week sprint program, and in only 2 coaching sessions helped me get clarity on my exponential pitch story. His style and guidance was so impactful that we are now collaborating on a project creating an exponential pitch deck, aiming to support Open EXO members with specific B2B support focused on creating great stories and pitch presentations to enroll investors, partners, clients, or team members. And then lastly, from Tom, I had the opportunity to interact with John as we went through the EXO training for the consultant, coach, and trainer certification. During the journey, we were in the same teams owing to our time zone proximity, and I enjoyed working and learning with John, who has developed into a good friend. He's an excellent team player who can be counted on. The best part of him is that he is a great listener and always has encouraging feedback for you. In many cases, the way he paraphrases what you said just made me feel smarter. I would love to have him on my team or be a part of the team he is on. And so with that, I'm going to welcome John to the screen. John, welcome. How are you doing? It is afternoon there, this afternoon.
It is afternoon. So thank you for having me, and I'm doing better. I've actually been in contact with all of those people in the last week, and none of them gave me any indication that they were saying anything. So that's very kind and heartwarming.
Awesome. I enjoy sharing those sorts of comments about the community, because there's one thing that's important in a community is sharing amongst community members, as opposed to having everything go through the core. And I think we have an amazing community. I know people often say they come for the methodology, and then the community is what sticks. So that's always lovely to hear. And so the first thing I always ask people is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a brief history of yourself and how you ended up coming to join the Open EXO community.
Sure. So, like you said, I'm in Ottawa, Canada, and I'm unusual in the community that for the longest time, I wanted to be a public servant and prepared towards that. So, my 20s, I spent in school in political science and law and public administration and philosophy. And all of that was as the prep work to be a public servant. And then I did that for about 20 years. And then 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, I decided I'd done all that I could in the public service and I got the entrepreneurial bug. So I left and set up my own practice that was based around crowdsourcing, the idea that you could tap into the collective intelligence of a crowd. So it was a bit experimental and things were going pretty well, especially like January, February, March 2020. And then COVID hit. So my business went to zero in 48 hours. And in light of that, I had to figure out, well, what is it that I was going to do? I'd been reading Peter Diamandis and others, and that got me onto Salim, which got me into the community. And I thought, well, I need to do something different, and here's an interesting community. So that's how I got started.
Okay, so I mean, I'm pretty sure there must be some other public servant within the community, but I guess maybe you are a bit few and far between. Although I mean, as you know, as Salim is extremely passionate about, he really believes that's our much higher purpose, right? Is that we need to transform society, and that means public service needs to have some sort of transformation. So having an understanding of how it's always been done, and then having an understanding of the technologies as well as the EXO model, that puts you in a pretty good place, I think.
Yeah, and actually, Salim was in Ottawa about 3 weeks ago, so he kindly reached out to me, and I was a fly on the wall as he was speaking to public servants. So he talked about some of the things that they were doing in Miami, for example, and it really captivated the crowd. The question is whether the public servant audience is actually going to get around to running a sprint, because you run into questions of procurement and so forth, of how can a big organization actually bring in someone like Salim to take on a project. So he said if anything comes out of it, that I could help out with it, just given my background. So we'll wait and see.
Absolutely, it's definitely not easy. In the past, the fast track sprints we've done in Miami and Medellin and Bogota were quite difficult. So yeah, so a big part, of course, of the EXO model is MTP, right? Having that massive transformative purpose. Can you share a little bit about your MTP sort of journey? And perhaps what your MTP is.
Sure. My MTP is helping people to turn their dreams into reality, which I recognize is not a great MTP. It's something I've struggled with, and especially on the massive part. But actually, the three quotes you had from my friends are around this, and it's like partly by working with people in the community, I've come to realize that I serve as a translator role. I help people take their ideas and express them more clearly. And I seem to have a knack for that. The irony is, I'm not very good at doing it for myself. I'm too close to the material, so I maybe need someone to help me figure out what my MTP is.
Look, I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, I think also for a person, and we've had these discussions with a few folks in the community, and I guess we need to constantly have them. Is also this idea of, is my purpose forever? Do I only have one purpose? We've, especially from a personal point of view, when it comes to an organization, you perhaps want to have that North Star so you can drive in that one direction. But we definitely have had people saying, but I think that there's more than just one thing that I want to focus on. But I do think that what's really important is at least having thought about it, right?
Yes.
And put something down, even if it's not perfect. We can always iterate. And so ultimately, as you shared, there was, you got the entrepreneurial bug. You then, unfortunately, COVID, really, put a big brakes on that. But that, I guess, did allow you to jump into some of the certification programs that we run. Can you share a little bit about what were the learnings having gone through those?
Sure. So I went through, I guess, all of the courses now. So I did the foundations and right through the consultant and the sprint and the training. So the course material itself was useful, and I think it allows us to have a shared understanding and to make it easier to communicate with people. We can say MTP and we have this terminology between us.
Hmm.
But like you said at the beginning, the real payoff was in the people that I met through the program. I found so many that were optimistic and enthusiastic and generous, keen to help. And I think that's been the biggest payoff for me beyond just the material itself.
No, absolutely. And in terms of your current business, perhaps you can share a little bit about what you're actually doing, and then sort of did going through or being a part of the Open EXO community, has that affected it in any way, or yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as part of EXO, we have the 11 attributes, and one is algorithms. Well, in part informed by the course, I pivoted from focusing on crowdsourcing, which was a little too niche, to artificial intelligence. And I got together with a partner, and so she's a data scientist. So between the two of us, she's got the technical ability, and then from my strategy background and
Hmm.
translation, data translation role, we combined to create a company called AI Guides. And the idea is that most organizations who try to adopt AI struggle, often because they get matched to the wrong solutions. And so, what we do is help them out on the strategy side. So, earlier in their planning process, to help them figure out, well, what is it that you want to do? And what's your IT maturity? And then help them pick the solutions that are the best fit for their environment. And so we do grounded in an EXO framework, and
Yes.
we encourage people to think big but start small.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, there's so much talk out in the world, right, about data is the new like oil, or data is the new gold type of thing, right? It's like,
Yeah,
and it's so true that being able to leverage data through algorithms, i.e., AI, machine learning, whatever they are, is can be groundbreaking for an organization. But unfortunately, as I'm sure your business partner would state, most data is not well presented. It's in a mess. It's difficult for you to actually program algorithms. So I guess, actually getting people in those early stages, I think, is really important to realize that there is potential here. But what do we need to do to harness that potential best for your organization, right?
exactly. So on a typical AI project, you might spend 80% of your time just on cleaning the data, which is absolutely essential, but not at all sexy or interesting. And so, you help prepare people to, like, this is what you're signing up for. But what's encouraging is that the access to AI is being democratized. So it's not, there are sometimes off the shelf tools that you can
Mm.
use. So you might think you want to do it with AI, but there might be a commercially available product that's a better fit for you, or certainly easier to get started. And so we try to encourage people to move in that direction.
No, absolutely. The I guess people also, it's really difficult because we're at this stage where we've got a lot of really good dumb AIs, right?
Yeah.
Where they really good on specific things. Um, and then you also have people who I guess want the impossible, and it's really about, like with an MTP, starting with something and
Yeah.
then iterating, right? As opposed to trying to have, something that's crazy from the beginning, and you just get bogged down in trying to build it and you never actually get anywhere.
Yeah, and you mentioned the expression that it's the new oil. Another metaphor could be for it is that it's the new uranium. So it's really powerful, but it takes work in order to be able to refine it and make sure that it's used appropriately. That you're generating energy and not creating a bomb, right?
No, absolutely, exactly, 100%. And a little bit earlier, you you mentioned that, part of the certification that was really amazing was sort of meeting the people, right? And so, what would you say, how have those people perhaps like been of great help for you as you've gone through programs and been a member of the community?
The community's helped in a lot of ways. I've posted questions on the community, and people have gotten back and just provided free, helpful advice. I've also accessed advisors for more formal projects. So, like trying to get a project done, and we wanted some expertise around chatbots. Put out a message, got several people who replied, and it was just really useful information. Other people have helped inform the shape of AI guides, so that was great. But probably the person I've worked most closely with is one of the three that you listed up front, which is Angela. And what she was talking about is we she was doing her sprint course, and for people who don't know, like at the end of the course, you have to give a pitch on your idea. It's a 6-week course, and her fellow cohorts were really struggling with it. And something she confessed later is that within the cohort, even though they'd been working together for 4 or 5 weeks, some of them didn't know what the other people were actually proposing. It was just too foggy. And so then I came in and spent about half an hour or an hour with each person. And instead of going through the template of like, here's the 11 attributes and this is what I'm doing, I just said, like, I'm that's good, but just tell me your story. What is it that you're trying to do and why does this matter to you? And they stopped being so attached to following the template and just spoke more naturally as they
Mm.
would to a friend. And as the people in the cohort were listening to it, they said, "Oh, that's what your idea is. Now I understand it." And uh, so Angela found it to be a really positive experience. And so the sense was that this was a pain point that a number of people had of like trying to do a pitch of there's so much information that you want to convey and you don't know what's most critical. How do you decide what not to share?
Mm.
And uh, given my knack for helping people sort that out and some of her skills around presentation, we thought, why don't we build a little beta course, which we put up in EXO Academy on doing an EXO pitch, doing an exponential pitch. So we put that out. We got some good feedback from the community. I think we're going to continue on with that. We'll see if there's an offer here, if we're touching a big enough pain point, but
Mm.
our hunch is that shifting more into helping people tell their story is where we should focus. So whether that's an idea that will scale or not is another question. But Angela and I are going to keep working on that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, sharing so many people. I mean, of course, I mean, we resonate with stories, but
Yeah.
it's really hard to tell stories sometimes. And so yeah, so that's a that it'll be really interesting to see where it goes, and I hope that that the community is super helpful with that. Now, I mean, storytelling is important. So now you've got storytelling, you've got AI. If ultimately in our community we want everyone to have an MTP. So how can we get, like, can we get AI and that storytelling together to create amazing MTPs, or get people fired up to go out there and change the world?
That's a great question, and it's something that I'm currently struggling with. So I have these two interests. So it's on the and they're both connected back to translating. So on the AI, people had this idea that there's this incredible potential. How can it impact me in my business, and helping them sort that out, or people who've got real passion about an idea, but others aren't being attracted to it. They're having difficulty connecting with people. So
Yeah.
helping them tell a story. And, my gut is that AI and storytelling should be able to come together. AI is able to find patterns in data that people don't see. It just sees things differently than what we do. And one of the things I'm working through is to see, can we combine AI to tell news stories, data-driven stories? And when you're starting to think about how that might scale, if you are like getting beyond a pitch of like just an entrepreneur to a VC, but taking it to like within an organization, how do you tell stories that resonate with the entire community, with the entire employee base, or your
Mm.
community, or your customers? And then you're starting to have a greater impact. So that's my near future. And so
Mm.
anybody in the community who has ideas and would like to talk about it, I'd be very enthusiastic.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And being one thing we've actually spoken about in internally in the core is about simple tools that when onboarding into the community can actually help people with thinking about their MTP and their story related to EXO. And so yeah, so really interesting.
Well,
And so
what are some of those tools? How do you think about them?
well, I mean, we're not even sure yet, but like, could there be some sort of MTP generator that you give it certain data, a little bit of
Ah,
information, or maybe it looks at your social media and whatever, and it analyzes things, and you give it a bit of data, and it gives you 5 options, and you
I
go,
see.
wow, those 5 options, I would never have thought of these two, and it can actually sort of spark the thinking process. Is one thing we thought about, but I mean, this was just a thought. So
I
hey,
like
John,
that. You know what it could
if
do is suggest some MTPs to you, and then you could vote on which one's closer, and then it generates more. And so you're giving it feedback,
yes,
and it's like it's a forced ranking
yeah,
process, and then it continues to generate different versions for you, sort of like um, there's tools that help you write blogs, and they'll
mm,
suggest like, here's the first paragraph of your blog, and if you don't like it, just will generate a new one. So it just keeps
yes,
generating new ideas. I like that.
awesome. So as I said to you before we went live, we're going to hit the 25 limit very quickly, and we have. So it's been
Sorry about that.
wonderful chatting to you, John. And I always like to end off just by asking folks, what is that sort of one thing you'd like to share with folks as we end off the call today?
Please reach out. I would love to talk with anyone. So if you have an interest in AI and how it can be democratized, or you want to talk about storytelling, or you think I might be able to help in some way, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. So yeah, you can find John on the platform if you're in the community, or go to
AI,
AIguides.co, I
yeah,
think it is.
yeah, you
AI
AI
Guides.
Guides.co, and there's a link to my calendar, so you can book 30 minutes anytime you want.
Awesome. Well, John, it's been great chatting to you. And hopefully we get to chat again in the community.
Super.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
So great chatting to John. The wide variety of people in the community. So if you're in the community and you come from the public sector and you want to, chat about storytelling and AI, definitely go to AIguides.co. Find John in the community. It's been wonderful chatting to you. We'll see you all again next week.